Well, hi, everybody. My name is Eric Stroshane, and I'm the Library Development Manager for the North Dakota State Library. Today, I'm going to talk to you about program assessment, why we do it, what the shortcomings of the most prevalent methods are, and how we can do it better using a free service called Project Outcome. Please note that I won't be able to actively monitor chat while I'm presenting. However, my extremely capable colleague Angie is in the Zoom room and will provide technical assistance to those who need it. There will also be plenty of time at the end for questions that you may have, and if you think of any questions after we log off, please don't hesitate to contact me. Before we delve in, it must be noted that this will be but a brief intro to Project Outcome and its potential to benefit you and your library. I'll only be able to scratch the surface in the short time I have with you today, but hopefully it's enough to compel you to sign up and start using this remarkable program. I truly believe that through it we can harvest better data, deliver better service, and build stronger communities. So let's get started. To start, we should start at the beginning, and that is that we keep stats rigorously, obsessively, mechanically, and primarily in the form of straightforward tally counts. That is what's known as output measurement. Eric, what is output measurement, you ask? Well, invisible online audience, it's data that answers the question, how much? And as you may imagine, output measurement is both a very basic and a very ancient practice. How much is a question humans have benefited from answering since time immemorial? Several enumeration systems for record keeping date back millennia, and we've even recovered prehistoric pie charts. Okay, I know that's probably not what that is, but a data junkie can dream, can't he? And frankly, we've been answering how much for such a long time because it does so much work for us. It enables inventory. It's absolutely essential for the management of budgets. It even tells us how many more times we can circulate a HarperCollins ebook before we have to purchase another license. Isn't that all we need to know? Can't we just stop there? Well, let's explore this a little. If we're gathering data, we should be doing so for a purpose. We need to ask, what can we do with this information? How does this relate to our mission? Does this data benefit our stakeholders? Or more simply, why are we doing this? Looking at programming statistics, we all tally two basic metrics: the number of programs held and the number of attendees. We subdivide these based on whether the key audience of a program is children, young adults, or regular adults. Why do we do this? Because it's required by statute? Because it's required by our state library? Maybe because it's required in order to be eligible for state financial aid or for LSTA subgrants. These are all valid reasons to perform a task, but quite honestly, none of them are good reasons to compile data. Ideally, data we gather should be operationally useful, valuable for assessment, and meaningful to our key stakeholders, those being our governing body, library users, and other community members. We need data to help us make decisions, and we need data illustrating the impact of the work we do on the communities we serve. Change is inevitable and relentless. In contemporary times, we've seen rapid technological shifts in the ways people access, process, interact with, and expect information. The ways we communicate, shop, and consume media today are radically different from how we did 10 to 15 years ago. The means of production and distribution are irrevocably altered from what they were when I was growing up. Perceptions and expectations of libraries have changed too. One of the keys to remaining relevant in revolutionary times is the willingness and capacity to make informed and agile responses. Doing so requires a sufficient understanding of the needs and interests of those we serve. Do program volume and attendance numbers tell us what sorts of programs we should be offering? Do they tell us which community groups we should be marketing to, or who we may be missing? Do they tell us what services we could scale back or eliminate? No, they don't. Output data is insufficient on its own. Having better rounded data would not only drive better decision making, it would aid in advocacy. We need something more to help us shift the perceptions with the times and ensure we're still able to tell the stories that matter about the places we love and the work we're passionate about doing. So let's consider enriching our outputs with another set of data called outcomes. While outputs answer the question, how much? Outcomes answer the question, what good did this do? Taken together, we have both the scale and the impact. The combination of these two things demonstrates the value and scope of our work. So how do we get to outcomes? We're not statisticians. We're not trained social researchers, and we don't have the time for this. Wait, what's this? Well, hello, Project Outcome. Where have you been all our lives? Project Outcome provides simple tools and an easy-to-use process for measuring outcomes and collecting insights about all the ways we meet the needs of our communities. They do this to help improve the way libraries do business, from allocating existing resources more efficiently to advocating for new resources more effectively. Project Outcome was developed by the Public Library Association in partnership with Community Attributes and Kixel, and with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Project Outcome is free to use for any public library in the US or Canada. It's surprisingly easy to sign up for, and any library that chooses to participate in Project Outcome will have access to patron surveys developed by a team of library leaders across the country. It also provides resources to help library staff administer the surveys and use the results for advocacy and strategic decision-making. Additionally, there's a detailed and interactive data dashboard displaying and contextualizing all your survey results, as well as tools you can use to build beautiful reports. So how Faustian is this bargain? Well, here's what you have to give up in exchange. The data you elicit becomes part of Project Outcome's shared data pool. This helps contextualize the work of other libraries while providing a picture of the impact libraries make at the state and national levels. In other words, the data you gather isn't yours and yours alone. But the data you gather is enriched by the data all other participating libraries are gathering and becomes part of an advocacy tool relevant at much more than just the local level. Libraries are amazing at sharing, and that is beautiful. So let me try and further convince you this is worth all the free you have to pay for it. Right off the bat, you get access to data that can help with planning and decision making. Even before you have survey data, you have demographic, economic, education, and health data, all of which can be scaled to a custom area that's as expansive or diminutive as you like. Want to see things at the county level? You can. How about within a 3-mile radius of one of your branch libraries? Easy peasy. Tri-state area? Why not? I can almost kind of freehand that. As an example, here's a concise overview of the sort of data that's immediately available about the Bismarck-Mandan area. This data can be used to assess community needs that you may not currently be meeting or even aware of. In addition to census data, Project Outcome also pulls in Institute of Museum and Library Services data from the annual reports that are submitted by public libraries nationwide. This means you also get access to how your library compares to state and national averages on different metrics like visits and program attendance. And this is all before you even start using the most valuable and unique asset of Project Outcome. Surveys designed by leading library and social research professionals to gather outcome-based data focused on the key areas of civic and community engagement, early childhood literacy, economic development, summer reading, job skills, education and lifelong learning, and digital learning. Project outcome features both immediate surveys as well as follow-up surveys in each of these areas. What's the difference, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Immediate surveys are designed to be distributed immediately after a program or service is completed. They aim to help librarians better understand the immediate impact a program or service has on patrons and their intention to change behavior as a result. Immediate surveys are quite short. They take only a couple minutes to complete. That being said, we do live in survey-fatigued times. Here are a few things you can try to boost response rate for your immediate surveys. You can have a handout, like a bookmark, a flyer, or a program, at each session you want to gather survey data about that features an easy short link and scannable URL for the survey. Conveniently, Project Outcome makes it super easy to produce these. You can urge people to complete the survey before they leave, and they can do this by using their smartphones, tablets, or a public access computer. If possible, you could have staff with tablets administering surveys as people depart the program area. Follow-up surveys, on the other hand, are to be used 4 to 8 weeks after a program or service is completed. They aim to help librarians better understand if patrons have changed their behavior or continued to benefit as a result of a program or service. Since these are distributed by email, you'll need to collect contact information from program attendees. This should be done separate from any survey conducted in order to preserve response anonymity. In other words, don't modify your immediate survey to request contact information that you'd use for a follow-up survey. Instead, use a sign-up sheet at your program to collect email addresses and consent for participation in a follow-up survey. I'm including this slide to give you a taste of the sort of data and reporting that is automatically generated for you. It's worth noting that the present data set for North Dakota is savagely anemic. We only have 2 libraries enrolled in Project Outcome, and they've each run but a single survey to test the waters. This makes me a little sad, as the truth is, Project Outcome has done all the hard work for you. They've built extremely thoughtful, well-designed, and library mission-appropriate survey tools. They've tethered them to large and highly relevant contextual data pools in elegant ways that make significant comparison work effortless. And they've incorporated reporting tools that automatically build lovely visualizations, which can be customized to suit your needs. What's more, they have gobs of tutorials and thoughtful, approachable instructional materials on their site. If I didn't already mention it, you can even customize the surveys, not just by altering or adding questions, but by incorporating your library's branding and logo. Project Outcome is not just easy, powerful, and smart, it's also flexible. Let's face it, we're here today because doing social research right is not only vitally important, it's really hard. Most of us don't have the background or training necessary for this stuff. That's why Project Outcome's work is so important, and why having these elegant, expert design tools freely accessible is a blinking godsend. It's time to leverage this to our advantage. So at this point, well, and that went a little bit faster than it did in rehearsal. I think I get nervous when I can't see anyone in the room. I am going to open things up for questioning. And so if you have any questions for me or any questions related to Project Outcome, please type them into chat at this time. I'll wait around for a little while so that I have a chance to respond to you. So first question. I did say that this was for public libraries, and it is designed for public libraries. I'm honestly not sure if they have functionality built in for other types of libraries. It's also open to state libraries and provincial libraries, mostly for a kind of overview assessment purpose. And I know a lot of the data that they have in there is geared towards public libraries, like the IMLS statistics. But you're from an academic library, right? I believe that's Charlene. I will have to check and see if they have assessment tools available for non-public libraries. It's looking at their site now. It does look like, even though it was designed for public libraries, I don't think it's restricted to them. So I bet you could go ahead and sign up, and you'd still be able to take advantage of, the survey tools and the reporting tools. But some of the data and some of the surveys are definitely more tied to the mission of public libraries than they would be to an academic library. But still, check it out. It would be interesting to see how that would work for you. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. Could you rephrase that for me? Okay, so how do you pitch using this free service that will help you gather data about the impact that the programs you run at your library have on your community? I think, what's the best sales pitch here? The idea behind it is that kind of the stats we've been gathering so far, as I mentioned, aren't really sufficient for the types of decisions we're having to make nowadays. And getting data that will better drive the decision-making process and better enrich our understanding of what the actual needs of our community members are is difficult to do. And Project Outcome really helps us with those things. It really helps us analyze and assess who is in our communities, how they're being served by the services we offer, or how we're failing to serve them, which is also vitally valuable information. So does that help, L. Williams? I guess another way of framing it is, now instead of just gathering information about how often and how well attended the programs you offer are, you also get information on how they affect people's lives, like what actually happens to people after they attend your sessions, what value there is in them coming. So it's really a powerful advocacy tool as well as a planning tool. Yeah, and they do have survey tools related to digital learning specifically. And yeah, that is an awesome area to be working in. So one of the interesting challenges that specific work would present would be, the accessibility of the email follow-up surveys. So there might be things you'd have to do to help facilitate and smooth that process if you're dealing specifically with digital divide situations. But you could certainly manage the immediate surveys, which would still greatly enhance the data you have. Yeah, so I guess another part of planning would have to be, how do you reach that other part of your community that you're feeling isn't supporting the efforts right now? And how do you prove the worth to them? That's a challenge. No, there is no expectation from you. Like I said, the only thing that Project Outcome gets out of this is if you do use their survey tools, then the data that you gather becomes part of a shared pool of data that is used for, broader advocacy efforts, and just to provide better understanding of the library practices nationwide and the impact that they're having on their communities. So yeah, you can sign up, just look at the demographic stuff, just check out their surveys, maybe even take them and build your own tools based on them, and not have any other participation with them. It's entirely up to you how far you take it, but it's a really well-designed system to work with. And I think the more people who are actively engaging with it, the better the data that we have nationwide will be. Sounds good. I look forward to hearing from you. All right. Any other questions on these assessment tools? It is finally getting warmer here. There's still a bit of snow on the ground, but it was around 50 when I went to lunch today, so it's not going to last much longer. All right. Well, I'm just going to type in my email address into chat here. If anyone does have any questions that they think of later on, I've got a good response time. I always appreciate hearing from folks, and I like talking stats with anyone and everyone. So please do get in touch. Don't be shy. I very much appreciate you sharing a half hour with me this afternoon. Thank you all.